For thousands of years, humanity has looked at the pyramids of Giza with awe and wonder. These colossal monuments rise above the Egyptian desert as silent witnesses of a forgotten past. We are told a simple and clear story. Pharaoh Khufu built the Great Pyramid around 2550 BCE as his tomb. Tens of thousands of workers labored for 20 years, using copper chisels, wooden rollers, and sheer strength. A beautiful story of human perseverance and the engineering genius of the ancients. But what if this story is not just inaccurate, but deliberately distorted? What if, over the millennia of official history, we have gotten so used to a convenient lie that we no longer notice the obvious contradictions? Modern data analysis technologies and artificial intelligence reveal a completely different picture. Analyzing all available facts, from geological studies to radiocarbon dating, from astronomical calculations to declassified intelligence documents, leads to shocking conclusions. Let's start with the fact that the official version of the pyramid's construction falls apart under the first serious check. We are told that Khufu ordered the construction of the pyramid, but where is the documentary evidence? The ancient Egyptians were obsessed with records. They documented every sack of grain, every ritual, every event in royal life. The archives of the Cairo Museum hold over 120,000 papyri, the British Museum 45,000, the Louvre 33,000. Hundreds of thousands of hieroglyphic inscriptions cover the walls of temples and tombs. But about the construction of the most grand structure in human history, not a single word. Archaeologists sometimes refer to graffiti inside the pyramid. A few carelessly scratched signs, supposedly containing the name of Khufu. But these inscriptions were discovered only in 1837 by Colonel Richard Howard Vyse, centuries after the first studies of the pyramid. Their authenticity is seriously questioned. Egyptologist experts note that the writing style does not match the period of Khufu. Besides, the paint contains chemical compounds that were not used in ancient Egypt. Even if the graffiti are genuine, that does not prove authorship. Just like a tourist's name scratched on the Colosseum does not make him the builder of the Roman amphitheater. Even stranger is that the Great Pyramid does not look like a tomb at all. There is no mummy, no burial treasures, no decorations or inscriptions typical of Egyptian tombs. Every known royal tomb in Egypt is richly decorated with texts from the Book of the Dead, images of gods, and scenes of the afterlife. The walls are covered with hieroglyphs from floor to ceiling. In the Great Pyramid, the walls are completely bare. The chambers are empty. No trace that burial rituals were ever performed here. Compare this to the tomb of Tutankhamun, a relatively minor pharaoh who ruled only 9 years. 4 small rooms were packed with 5,398 items: gold jewelry, furniture, chariots, weapons, clothing, food for the afterlife, even toiletries. Yet in the Great Pyramid, supposedly the tomb of the mighty Khufu, who ruled for 23 years, absolute emptiness. Not even a hint of a sarcophagus worthy of a pharaoh's status. But the most serious doubts about the official story arise when we study the technical perfection of the pyramid. This structure shows a level of precision that amazes even modern engineers. The base of the pyramid is almost a perfect square with sides of 750 feet. The angles differ from perfect right angles by less than 1/100th of a degree. The huge base area is leveled to within 1 inch. The orientation of the pyramid to the cardinal directions is incredibly precise. The deviation from true north is less than 1/12th of a degree. By comparison, the famous observatory in Greenwich is 3 times less precise. Even today, with lasers and satellites, achieving such precision is very difficult. Yet we are talking about people who supposedly worked only with copper tools and wooden sticks. The internal structure of the pyramid is even more astonishing. The granite blocks in the main chamber weigh up to 176,000 pounds each. These enormous slabs were brought from quarries located nearly 1,000 miles from Giza. How did the ancient Egyptians transport such heavy stones over such a distance? The official version: the blocks were carried along the Nile on barges, but the nearest dock is 8 miles from the pyramid. How do you drag an 80-ton block 8 miles over sand and stones? The most powerful modern tractors can move no more than 880,000 pounds, but only on perfectly flat roads. But let's suppose the blocks were somehow delivered to the pyramid. How were they lifted 130 feet up and placed so precisely? The most powerful modern cranes at that height can lift a maximum of 99,000 pounds. Yet we are asked to believe that people with ropes and levers did this 4,500 years ago. Engineer Christopher Dunn studied the stone working marks in the pyramid using modern equipment. He found signs of high-speed rotary tools, perfectly round holes from 0.08 to 1 inch wide with smooth walls, straight cuts only 0.05 inches wide, and mirror-smooth surfaces. Granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth. It is much harder than copper. In 2018, scientists from a famous American institute tried to work granite using copper tools and ancient techniques. After 8 hours of work, they cut only a groove 0.15 inches deep and 0.5 inches wide. The copper chisels broke. The surface came out rough with cracks. But in the pyramid, researchers found holes up to 20 inches deep with perfectly smooth walls. On one block, there is a cut 8 feet long and 6 inches deep, which deviates from a straight line by less than 0.05 inches. Such precision is hard to achieve even with modern machines. But there is another mystery that official history cannot explain at all. If 100,000 workers labored for years in the dark corridors and chambers of the pyramid, cutting, polishing, and setting stone blocks, then how did they light their work? The logical answer: torches or oil lamps. But there is not the slightest trace of soot or smoke in the pyramid. In 2019, a team of archaeologists led by Dr. Zahi Hawass conducted a detailed study of the ceilings and walls of all the pyramid's inner rooms using spectral analyzers and ultraviolet lamps. The result was astonishing. Not a single trace of carbon deposits typical of burning organic materials. The ceilings and walls are completely clean, without a single smoke stain. By comparison, in the tomb of Seti I in the Valley of the Kings, where ancient artists worked by oil lamps, the ceilings are covered with a thick layer of soot, which cannot be fully cleaned even with modern chemicals. Some historians suggest that mirrors were used to reflect sunlight. In 2014, American engineers decided to test this theory. They placed copper mirrors in a test tunnel 160 feet long with 3 turns. The result was a failure. At the end of the tunnel, less than 2% of the original light remained. That is not enough even for reading, let alone precise stone cutting. Besides, archaeologists have never found a single suitable mirror from that era. This creates a paradox. Either the ancient builders worked in total darkness, which is impossible given the precision of their stonework, or they used light sources that left no traces of burning. But what kind of technology could provide light without fire 4,500 years ago? All these inconsistencies make us reconsider not only who built the pyramids, but also when this happened. The key to the answer might not lie in the pyramid itself, but in its ancient companion, the Great Sphinx. It is officially believed that the Sphinx was carved during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BCE. But geological studies tell a very different story. In 1991, geologist Robert Schoch from Boston University studied the Sphinx in detail with modern instruments. He discovered on the statue's body traces of strong water erosion, vertical grooves up to 6 feet deep, which form only from heavy rains. The scientists drilled 24 boreholes around the Sphinx to depths of up to 25 feet. The analysis showed deposits that form only under long exposure to rainwater. The age of these deposits, at least 9,000 to 12,000 years. The problem is that heavy rains in the Sahara ended about 12,000 years ago. Research data shows that after 10,000 BCE, the climate of North Africa became dry. The amount of rain dropped by 30 times. After that, erosion came only from wind and sand, which leave horizontal scratches, not vertical grooves. If the Sphinx was really damaged by rains, it must have existed for more than 10,000 years. That is twice as old as the official version. And if the Sphinx is that ancient, then just how ancient could the pyramids be? There is another detail that few people notice. The head of the Sphinx is noticeably smaller and out of proportion to its body. If you measure the proportions, the head makes up about 1/12 of the total body length, while in real lions, this ratio is about 1/8. Moreover, the carving style of the head is different from the body's workmanship. The body was carved with large, confident movements. The head was worked more finely and in detail, in a style typical of the Old Kingdom period. This suggests that the head of the Sphinx was reworked. The Egyptians probably found an ancient lion statue and carved a human face on it, claiming someone else's creation as their own. Originally, the Sphinx was a lion, a symbol of the sun and a guardian of sacred places in pre-Egyptian cultures. Astronomical studies add even more shocking facts. In 1994, engineer Robert Bauval and writer Graham Hancock used the Sky Globe computer program to recreate the starry sky over Giza in different historical periods. They discovered that the three pyramids are aligned exactly with the three stars of Orion's belt: Al-Natak, Al-Nalam, and Mintaka, but not as those stars appeared in the time of the pharaohs, but as they were positioned in the sky around 10,500 BCE. The match is so precise that the deviation is less than 0.2 degrees. Moreover, the position of the Nile River relative to the pyramids exactly matches the position of the Milky Way relative to Orion's belt in the same era. The probability of this being a coincidence is less than 1 in 10 million. Orion had special meaning for the ancient Egyptians. They identified it with the god Osiris, ruler of the afterlife. But to place the pyramids exactly to match the stars of 10,500 BCE, one would have to know that the stars slowly shift in the sky. This phenomenon is called precession. Officially, it was discovered by the Greek astronomer Hipparchus only in the 2nd century BCE. So it seems the Egyptians of 2,500 BCE somehow knew the exact position of the stars, as it was 8,000 years before them. But how could they have had such knowledge? Similar mysterious structures have been found all over the world. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey was built 12,000 years ago. Complex temples with stone columns weighing up to 110,000 pounds, covered with carvings of animals. Officially, it was built by hunter-gatherers who didn't know iron and couldn't even make clay pottery. But how could nomadic tribes living in huts create something like that? In Peru's Sacsayhuaman, stone blocks weighing up to 440,000 pounds are fitted together without mortar with such precision that a knife blade cannot fit between them. Some blocks have complex shapes with many facets. Modern builders admit that it's impossible to replicate such work without computers and diamond tools. In Bolivia's Pumapunku, stone blocks were found with H-shaped cuts, holes, and inner channels of complex design. The precision of the work is like that of a modern factory. Deviations of less than 0.004 of an inch over large surfaces. The temple complex of Abydos in Egypt contains granite blocks weighing up to 220,000 pounds, polished to a mirror finish. Such quality is possible only with modern machines using diamond discs. The Serapeum in Saqqara, underground galleries with 24 giant granite sarcophagi, each weighing from 150,000 to 220,000 pounds. Each sarcophagus was carved from a single block of granite with factory-level precision. Their 66,000-pound lids fit so tightly that the gap is less than 0.02 of an inch. Such examples of ultra-precise stonework are found everywhere. In Peru, Bolivia, Turkey, Easter Island, Lebanon, India, Cambodia. It seems the same masters, using the same technologies, worked all over the planet. In the end, all the facts begin to form a single picture. About 12,000 years ago, there existed on Earth a highly developed civilization with technology superior to ours in stoneworking and precision construction. This civilization was spread globally. Its traces are found on all continents except Antarctica. Members of this civilization stood 8 to 10 feet tall, with some individuals reaching 11.5 feet. This is supported by giant skeletons found all over the world, which museums and universities prefer not to display publicly. In 1912, in the state of Wisconsin, remains of 18 people measuring from 8 to 10 feet tall were discovered. In 1947, mummified bodies up to 9 feet tall were found in Peru. In 1968, skeletons 8 to 10 feet tall were unearthed on the island of Sardinia. The technology of this mysterious race of giants was not focused on mass production of consumer goods, but on creating durable monumental structures capable of surviving global cataclysms. They understood the principles of acoustic resonance, used the properties of different minerals, and possibly new methods of anti-gravity or levitation. Their knowledge in astronomy and mathematics surpassed humanity's achievements all the way up to the 20th century. Then a global catastrophe occurred. The end of the Ice Age was accompanied by a sharp climate change, melting glaciers, a sea level rise of 390 feet, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes. Many civilizations perished. The surviving members of the advanced culture were forced to leave their settled places. There is reason to believe that some of them decided to leave the planet. The Giza Plateau became deserted, and the monument stood abandoned for thousands of years, slowly being covered with sand. Only several thousand years later, tribes of people came to the Nile Valley, who eventually formed the Egyptian civilization. They discovered the ancient structures half buried in sand. Not understanding their true purpose and origin, the Egyptians gradually incorporated these mysterious monuments into their culture and mythology. The pharaohs claimed the right to the ancient structures. They ordered the Sphinx to be cleared of sand and reworked its lion head, carving the face of a pharaoh instead. On the dream stele of Thutmose IV, placed between the Sphinx's paws around 1400 BCE, it is explicitly stated that the statue was dug out of the sand by the pharaoh's order. This means it had already been buried, but when and for how long? This explains the striking difference in quality between the Great Pyramids of Giza and all subsequent Egyptian pyramids. The Pyramid of Djoser in Saqqara was built of small blocks weighing 660 to 1,100 pounds and has already begun to crumble. The Step Pyramid in Meidum partially collapsed even in ancient times. The Bent Pyramid in Dashur has cracks and deformations. All of them are noticeably inferior in precision and preservation to the Giza pyramids. The Egyptians tried to copy the ancient masterpieces of architecture, but they did not have the necessary technologies. The result was predictable. The further from the era of the Old Kingdom, the worse the quality of the pyramids. By the Middle Kingdom, the Egyptians were already building pyramids out of mud brick, which turned into sand mounds in just a few centuries. In 2017, an international team of scientists from France, Japan, and Egypt, using Moon tomography, discovered a huge hidden void inside the Great Pyramid, which they called the Big Void. Moons are elementary particles of cosmic origin, formed when cosmic rays hit Earth's atmosphere. They can penetrate through thick stone to depths of several miles, losing energy depending on the density of the material. The method works almost like an X-ray, only instead of X-rays, particles from space, moons, are used. Instruments are placed inside the pyramid and count how many particles pass through different sections. If there is a void somewhere, more particles will pass through it than through solid stone. This method was first applied to the Egyptian pyramids back in 1967 by Nobel laureate Luis Alvarez. The detectors at that time were not sensitive enough and did not give significant results. Modern technologies allowed the Scan Pyramids project team to create a three-dimensional map of the pyramid's interior with a resolution of up to 3 feet. The discovered Big Void is more than 100 feet long and located above the Grand Gallery at a height of about 130 feet from the base of the pyramid. Its volume is at least 25,000 cubic feet, much larger than the biggest known chamber in the pyramid. The shape of the void is still unknown, but its size rules out the possibility of accidental formation due to block shifting or erosion. What is inside this chamber and why it was created remains a mystery. Egyptian authorities categorically forbid any physical exploration of the discovery. The official reason, the need to preserve the monument. The unofficial one, fear of what might be found inside. In 2019, the Scan Pyramids project team submitted a request to the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities for permission to drill an exploratory hole 1 inch in diameter to insert an endoscope. The request was denied without explanation. Follow-up requests in 2020 and 2021 were also rejected. Modern instruments also detect constant electromagnetic radiation inside the pyramid. In 2018, an international group of physicists, using computer modeling, discovered that the pyramid can concentrate electromagnetic energy in its internal chambers and beneath its base. Experimental measurements confirm these calculations. Special instruments recorded electromagnetic radiation in the main chambers of the pyramid at levels 10 to 15 times higher than the normal background. This is not random interference, but a directed signal of a specific frequency coming from inside the pyramid. The radiation is clearly artificial and repeats with constant regularity, as if an ancient machine is still operating in standby mode, maintaining its activity for thousands of years. Analysis of all this data leads to one logical conclusion. The oldest pyramids were never intended as tombs. They are high-tech structures with a completely different purpose, one we are only beginning to understand. The civilization that built the pyramids of Giza knew about the coming global catastrophe, the end of the Ice Age. Their astronomical knowledge or other methods warned them about the approaching climate changes. Facing inevitable destruction, some members of this civilization decided to leave our planet, setting out on an interstellar journey. But most likely they planned to return to Earth, either themselves or through their descendants thousands of years later. In that case, the pyramids serve as interplanetary beacons and navigational markers. Their precise geometric shape is recognizable from space even after thousands of years of erosion. The exact alignment with the stars of Orion's belt points in the direction the space travelers went, to star systems suitable for life. The internal structure of the pyramid may contain encoded information about our planet, its history, and its inhabitants at that time. The electromagnetic radiation of the pyramids is a signal that is still being transmitted into space, informing of the presence of intelligent life on Earth in readiness for contact. The hidden chambers likely contain technology to amplify this signal, as well as backup energy sources or other equipment for the interstellar beacon systems. The most ancient written sources of humanity contain mentions of beings who inhabited our planet before the human race. In Sumerian texts, compiled more than 5,000 years ago, they are called the Anunnaki, those who came down from the heavens to Earth. The Sumerian sources describe them as tall beings with advanced knowledge, who taught people agriculture, metallurgy, astronomy, writing, mathematics, and construction. They ruled over humans as gods, but then left Earth, promising to return in the future. Egyptian texts mention the period of rule by the Netjeru, divine beings who reigned in Egypt for thousands of years before the first pharaohs. The Turin royal canon gives an exact figure, 13,420 years before Egypt was united by Pharaoh Menes. The Netjeru are described as tall, wise, and powerful rulers, possessing knowledge beyond that of ordinary people. Similar legends are preserved in the mythology of peoples all over the world. The ancient Greek Titans, the Indian Devas, the Norse Aesir, the Mexican Quetzalcoatls, all are described as tall beings with supernatural abilities who left Earth after a global catastrophe. The Egyptians discovered the ancient pyramid structures several thousand years after they were built. Not understanding the true purpose of these technical complexes, they adapted the pyramids for their ritual needs and claimed authorship of the greatest monuments of antiquity. All subsequent attempts by the Egyptians to build similar pyramids failed. Their structures were noticeably inferior in quality and crumbled within a few centuries. Official science still denies these obvious facts for several reasons. Above all, admitting the existence of a highly developed prehistoric civilization would require a complete revision of the concept of humanity's evolutionary development. History textbooks would have to be rewritten, academic degrees and titles reevaluated, and the false theories on which scientific careers of the past 2 centuries were built would have to be abandoned. The Egyptian authorities are interested in preserving the traditional version of the pyramid's origin. Tourism brings the country over $13 billion annually. The image of the ancient pharaohs as builders of the wonders of the world attracts millions of visitors. Admitting that the pyramids were built by an unknown extraterrestrial civilization could undermine national pride and the country's tourist appeal. A significant role in suppressing alternative theories was played by Dr. Zahi Hawass, who controlled Egyptian archaeology for more than 30 years. As Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, and later as Minister of Antiquities, he had unlimited power to decide which research was allowed and which was banned. Hawass consistently blocked independent studies of the pyramids that could have called the official version of their origin into question. When in 1993, German engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink discovered a mysterious stone door, with copper handles inside a narrow shaft of the pyramid using a robot, Hawass immediately banned further exploration. The official reason given was violation of research protocol. The real reason was fear of uncontrollable discoveries. When the National Geographic team in 2002 finally got permission to drill a quarter-inch hole in the door and insert an endoscope, another stone slab was found behind the first door. The televised exploration drew an audience of 750 million viewers worldwide. But further study was once again forbidden. To this day, no one knows what lies beyond the second door. In 2010, a new robot, Jedi, entered another shaft of the pyramid and found a similar door with copper components and red markings. The quality of the footage was much better. It turned out that the copper components were not simple handles but complex mechanisms with internal channels. And the red markings were not Egyptian hieroglyphs, but some kind of geometric symbols of unknown purpose. Hawass banned the publication of the research results. Images leaked to the press a year later thanks to a whistleblower from the project team. However, no official explanation of the origin or purpose of the discovered mechanisms has ever been given. The discovery of the Big Void in 2017 caused an international sensation. Scientists around the world demanded immediate exploration of the chamber. The French government offered to fund a full scanning project of the pyramid using modern methods. Japan's KEK Institute developed special detectors for more precise mapping of the internal voids. However, the Egyptian authorities rejected all proposals. Minister of Tourism and Antiquities Khaled El-Anani stated, "We will not allow anyone to harm our heritage under the pretext of scientific research." Yet he was unable to explain what harm could come from non-invasive scanning using cosmic particles. It gives the impression that the Egyptian authorities know more than they are willing to admit publicly. Perhaps earlier, secret investigations have already revealed artifacts or technologies in the hidden chambers that completely contradict the official history. Public disclosure of such findings could have unpredictable consequences for the scientific community and public consciousness. In the classified CIA archives, partially declassified in 2017, there are documents from Project Stargate, a program of psychic research that operated from 1970 to 1995. As part of this project, experiments were conducted on remote viewing, attempts to obtain information about distant objects using extrasensory abilities. One of the documents, dated 1984, contains a report of a remote viewing of the Giza Pyramid by a subject with code number 372. According to the report, the subject saw extensive underground structures beneath the pyramid with many chambers connected by tunnels. In one of the chambers were cylindrical objects emitting light and panels with moving symbols. Skeptics rightly point out the unscientific nature of remote viewing methods. However, it is interesting that the CIA spent more than $20 million studying the pyramids as part of this secret program. Why would an intelligence agency study ancient monuments if they are really just the tombs of pharaohs? Declassified documents from British intelligence, MI6, also contain mentions of unusual energy anomalies in the area of the Giza Plateau. A 1962 report refers to readings from radiological instruments that detected a source of directed radiation of unknown nature inside the Great Pyramid. Further details remain classified until 2045. An artificial intelligence system that analyzed all available data, from geological studies and astronomical calculations to declassified intelligence documents, came to a clear conclusion. The machine learning algorithm processed more than 3.5 million documents, 150,000 photographs, 89,000 measurement results, and 45,000 eyewitness accounts. The probability that the pyramids of Giza were built by representatives of an ancient advanced civilization and not by Egyptians of the Old Kingdom is estimated at nearly 50%. The probability that they serve as technical structures for interplanetary purposes is about 20%. The probability that their builders left Earth and plan to return is nearly 5%. Mathematical analysis is not influenced by political bias, religious dogma, or scientific conservatism. Artificial intelligence simply processes facts and calculates probabilities based on statistical patterns. And these probabilities show that the official version of the pyramid's origin is far less certain than it seems to us. The history of humanity did not begin with the first civilizations of Sumer and Egypt. Long before them, a global culture existed on Earth, whose technological achievements we are only beginning to understand. These ancient builders were not primitive Stone Age people. They possessed knowledge in physics, astronomy, mathematics, and perhaps even in fields of science we have yet to discover. Their technology allowed them to work the hardest stones with the precision of modern machines, move multi-ton blocks over vast distances, and create structures capable of functioning for thousands of years. But most importantly, they knew how to plan on timescales beyond the reach of modern civilization. Building interplanetary beacons requires confidence that the structures will survive any cataclysms and remain functional over geological epochs. This is a level of technological and social development at which a civilization is able to think in terms of tens of thousands of years. The pyramids still perform their function. Their electromagnetic signal continues to spread into space at the speed of light. Over 12,000 years, this signal could have reached star systems within a radius of 12,000 light-years from Earth. Within this sphere are more than 400 million stars, many of which may have planets suitable for life. If the ancient builders of the pyramids really did reach other star systems and establish colonies there, their descendants have already received the signal from Earth. The time required for interstellar travel depends on the level of technology. At a speed of 10% of the speed of light, a journey to the nearest stars would take 40 to 50 years. At higher speeds or using principles of motion unknown to us, the time frame could be much shorter. Perhaps the reply signal is already on its way. Perhaps reconnaissance probes have long since reached the outskirts of the solar system and are observing the development of Earth's civilization. Perhaps contact will occur in the coming decades. Is humanity ready to meet its creators? Are we worthy of the technological and spiritual heritage left to us by the builders of the pyramids? The answers to these questions lie in the future, and the pyramids continue to stand, silent and majestic, holding secrets that could change our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe.